This is a quick, simple tutorial on how to patch things into our Dante network. For instance, our multitracks. So whenever using Ableton Live for our multitracks, those are all done through Dante Virtual Sound Card, which goes over a network into our computer, which means we can, right now we're using 9 different kinds of tracks over one single cable, which is really amazing. But there is a little bit of a setup here. And the way we do that is very simple. I'm going to explain it all to you. We're going to run through it all. And everything I'm doing on the screen is exactly the way it would be on the board. So it's very easy for you guys to follow along. First thing we're going to do here is go to Setup on the top right of the screen. And then we're going to go to System Config. And here you can see we have a bunch of different things here. We have our CS1, our DSP, HY slot 1 through 4, and then 2 blank MY slots. Now don't worry about if under HY slot you see other devices other than 1 through 4 here under slot 1, and you see a ton more on slot 4, and maybe you see something on slot 2 or slot 3. That's not really too important. What exactly is right here is not very important, but what does matter is that it does not say virtual underneath it. Now for my purposes, I've just recreated the board in my computer so I could demonstrate this. So mine will say virtual on the board. If it says virtual, there's another issue here that you could talk to me or you can talk to Ryan to learn how to fix. So barring that doesn't say virtual, let's continue. So what you're going to do here is you can tap on HY slot 1. You can either tap it right here. You can click on HY slot 1 up in the top left. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you here under HY slot 1, we can see all of the devices that are mounted on HY slot 1. Now when I'm saying that they're mounted on HY slot 1 is I'm really meaning that let's say I have these 2 Rios here, right? And these 2 Rios are the back of the Rio, or the Rios in the back in the quiet room in the rack. Okay, whenever I mount a Rio onto here, I am able to access all of those inputs and all of those outputs on that Rio. So if it's not mounted, I can't access it. I can't even see it on my thing. So for instance here, let's say if I didn't have this Rio 1 mounted, I wouldn't be able to access any of the channels that are on Rio 1. Kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, hi-hat, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3. I wouldn't be able to access any of that because the board wouldn't know where to find that information. So really, everything that is going to be used in our network needs to be mounted onto a HY slot. Now, everything in slot 1 has to run at 96 kilohertz, which if you're doing it for Dante, there are several ways to change a device configuration to 96 kilohertz, which I can cover in a later video if I make a video about how to set up Dante with Ableton for our multitracks. But for now, just know that everything that is going to be used, if you're going to add a new computer, you need to mount it here. And the way we can mount something here is you can click on a blank mounting spot. For instance, mine is number 5 is the next one I have blank. I think on the board right now, I think number 12 or 11 is the next one we have blank, but I'm going to go with number 5. And you can see here, it gives me a bunch of device lists. And normally, you don't really have to pick from this because if everything is plugged in correctly, you should just be able to go to online and it should show up right here. Now, because mine's virtual, mine doesn't show up right here, but just as an example, it would normally show up here if everything is plugged in correctly. So normally you click it out right here, you click OK, and it would be mounted. In my case, let's say I'm adding another computer. I'm just going to say the most recent conference we had. We added Brandon Cowden. This is about how his looked on our network. Cool. So let's just say I added that through the online. Now you can see we have 3 computers listed here, and they should all be going through Dante Virtual Sound Card. So let's say the patching is on my computer right now. Let's say for some reason I decided to run Ableton tracks on a Sunday morning. Completely out of the normal for me, right? So the next Sunday we go in and I'm not running those Ableton tracks, but now the board thinks it's looking for my computer for those specific tracks. It's looking at my computer to see when we're running something. So we need to change that over to the Stage MacBook Pro. So what we can do here is on the right side, we go to Dante Input Patch. And up at the top here, these are all of our inputs, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the 1 and 2 are slots 1 and 2 that are mounted here respectively, which are our Rio. So you can see the 32 ins. And then the next 3, number 3, 4, and 5, are the 3 Macs I have mounted here. So a Stage MacBook Pro, my MacBook Pro, and Brandon Cowden's MacBook Pro. And those are all set to 16 inputs and 16 outputs. Now, if you're going to be running Ableton and Dante Virtual Sound Card, each one of these has to be at least 9 inputs, or outputs I mean, which I believe in Dante Virtual Sound Card it goes from 2, 4, 8 to 16. So 16 is the very minimum input and output that we need in order to run Ableton and run our tracks in the main sanctuary. So what we can do here is if you scroll through number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can just touch this on the screen and drag it over. Or if you don't feel comfortable, you can touch this on the screen and use the physical knob on the control surface on the PM3 to move this back and forth. So if we go to number 1, we see it says Y001, Y002. Number 3 is the Stage MacBook Pro. Number 4 is mine, and number 5 is Brandon Cowden's. So you can see right now it looks like there's nothing patched into all this. If you go back to number 1, you can see it kind of goes down, but beyond that we really don't have anything patched in here. And that's because all of our patching specifically for our main sanctuary is done on HY slot 1, but it's done on number 71. So if I go down here to 71, you can start to see that everything on our network right now is patched to my MacBook, right? So I have 1 through 9 on my MacBook patched right into 71 through 79 in our HY slot 1 card, which is just fine. HY slot 71 through 79 is our tracks channels. So what we need to do here is change these to be the MacBook for our platform, for our stage, so that if someone else were to go up and get to use Ableton, those tracks would work. Very easy to do. All we gotta do is go here and find the computer we want to use to patch through. If I was using Brandon's, I'd go over here. If I'm using the Stage MacBook, I'd go over here. All these numbers at the top here correspond to the numbers right beside the mounting point. So you can see everything that's mounted has a number that corresponds to it, and that corresponds with the Dante input patching, so it's super easy to understand. Next, we just have to make sure we go to the number 1 slot up here and slot number 71 here, right? And I'm just going to get that 32 out of there because I don't want to patch in that. So I have 71 over here and channel number 1 right here. And all I'm going to do is you can go through and you can click these individually, but you can tell that that's not going to be any fun. So I'm going to do a much more simple way, right? I'm just going to patch these just for sake of showing it. So I don't want to have to click this and then click OK every time just to confirm that I want to patch something. That would just be tedious. Well, luckily Yamaha has given us a very easy way of doing this. You just go up to this top left corner, make sure your 2 white bars are right here in this corner. So you have one going horizontally and one going vertically. Just make sure they're in that top left corner and that it's both on 1 and 71 respectively. Then you click this little button right here, and then you can take your knob here and just pull it down until you reach channel 9 right here. And then you click this green arrow, and ta-da! You have successfully patched it all through at once, and it has not asked you to confirm it. So cool. Now everything is patched into the Stage's MacBook Pro instead of my MacBook Pro. It's the same exact process. If I was going to patch in Brandon's MacBook Pro, I would just go up here, press that button again, and then patch in 1 through 9. And now, ta-da! Instead of our Stage MacBook Pro, Brandon's MacBook Pro is now patched in to the Dante network. So it's very versatile, very easy to use, and I hope this helped you. So, cool.